Hello and welcome to another edition of CatScan. My name is Adam Green. We're going to talk about the Arizona Wildcats football team. The number 24 ranked Arizona Wildcats football team. How did they get there? Well, let me be honest with you. If you saw last week's show, you already know I did not expect the Wildcats to beat number 18 Oklahoma State. And halfway through the first quarter, it seemed like they wouldn't. They fell behind 14-0, and it looked like it was going to be the same old story, same as the last two times these two teams played. Then the Wildcats scored the next 30 points en route to a 59-38 win, and, well, all is well in Wildcat land. How did it happen? Matt Scott completed 28 of 41 passes for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. The key number, though, is 0. He threw no interceptions in the game. Sure, his 19 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown were also big, but really, as long as the Wildcats offense doesn't turn the ball over, which they did against Toledo 2 weeks ago, they will score points. Kadeem Carey, another big game, 26 carries for 126 yards and 3 touchdowns. He added another score as a receiver. He is stepping up and becoming the elite running back that we all thought he'd be as a freshman last year. So the offense is really good. Of course, it wouldn't have happened without the defense. They forced Wes Lunt into 3 interceptions and had 4 turnovers overall from Oklahoma State. But as good as that was, it was helpful that Oklahoma State basically tripped over themselves throughout most of the game. 15 penalties for 167 yards. That certainly helped the Wildcats. Of course, it also helped to offset the 636 total yards Oklahoma State racked up in the game. And while a lot of people are crediting Arizona's defense for being opportunistic, which is a big word that's been thrown around, that's just a really nice way of saying lucky. Good defenses force mistakes and get stops. And the Wildcats, they forced a couple of the mistakes. The pick 6 from Jonathan McKnight being one of them. They got pressure. But the key thing is they got just enough stops to get the win because their offense was firing on all cylinders, which was enough to take the lead and put away a very good team at home. So the Wildcats 2-0 coming off the biggest win of the Rich Rodriguez era, which is only 2 games in. So you got to be pleased with that. Because what it means is the rebuilding process is not going to take that long. Mike Stoops was hired. He needed 5 seasons to get Arizona to a bowl game. His first big win was in year 2 when Arizona beat number 7 UCLA 52-14. But they didn't do much after that. They didn't follow it up with any big wins. That team failed to build on the win, and it kind of made it look like it was a fluke. It was just one of those games you throw it away, doesn't mean anything. Not saying Rich Rod needs to parlay this victory into a bowl game. It'd be nice, of course. But the more the team wins, the higher the expectations will be, which gets us back to the key word from a couple of weeks ago that Wildcats fans need to have, and that's patience. You have to remember, this is a gravy season for Rich Rodriguez. If the Wildcats make a bowl game, that's great. But as long as they do positive things, you feel good about them going forward because that's what this is about, building for the future. Speaking of the future, what's coming up next? South Carolina State is coming to Tucson, and they are from the MEAC Conference. For those of you who don't know, and that's probably all of you, that's the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. A couple of common opponents, you're not going to find any. They beat Georgia State 33-6 a couple weeks ago, lost to Bethune-Cookman 27-14 last week. Bethune-Cookman, Wildcats fans might know, is a basketball team that Arizona played a couple years ago. Apparently they're a football school because they can win in that sport. Like the Wildcats, these guys like to spread the field and push the tempo. Wildcats coach Rich Rodriguez said that normally you would say your guys are in good enough shape that they'd be able to handle it, but it's concerning as you go through. Says there's a difference between the games and practice, but we try to have tough practices. In other words, there's nothing to worry about with this team. They run the exact same offense as Arizona, only not as good. This game should not be a problem for the Arizona Wildcats. They're not going to look past this team. They won 4 games last year. Don't expect this team to be that high on themselves. They win this one easily, 41-17. The Wildcats move to 3-0, heading into a big matchup with Oregon next week. That's going to do it for another edition of CatScan. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next week. Until then, if you want more thoughts on Arizona Wildcats, you can follow me on the Twitter @TheAdamGreen, or you can check out my podcast on ArizonaSports.com called Bearing Down.